This video will show you how to replace the front sealed wheel bearing hub assembly on a Jeep Renegade. This is part of the front steering and suspension located behind the front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. To do the wheel bearing, safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. Once you've completed that, you're going to remove all 5 of your 17mm lug studs. Now just a quick note about these, as you remove them, you're going to remove the entire stud that holds the wheel in place. So make sure you leave one lug stud in place at least a couple threads. We've got our 17mm. Now that's what our lug stud looks like there. As you can tell, it removes it from the wheel bearing. I'm just going to put this back on my socket. We'll start it in a couple threads, continue on removing all others. Now with these aluminum wheels, it's common to have corrosion holding them in place, so I'm going to tap on the inboard side. Once this does have a little bit of movement, we can continue on. Now we'll hold onto the wheel, we can get this lug nut off of here. Now that we have the wheel off, we're going to pay attention to our caliper itself. As far as the caliper is concerned, we have to push back our caliper piston. That's going to go into this area here. For this, I'm just going to be using a small pry bar. We'll insert it into this area. And now I'm prying up against my brake rotor and up against the caliper, pulling the caliper outward, and that's going to push this piston inward. We can see the piston in there. That's a good sign. We have movement. Let's continue on with our 2 caliper bracket bolts next. Looking along the backside here, we can see our 2 mounting bolts. For these, we're using an inverted T20 socket. Here's our socket. Once you have that bolt out of there, just a quick inspection, start it back in a couple threads. That's going to prevent the caliper from falling down on us while we continue on to our next mounting bolt. Go ahead and remove that. A quick inspection, we'll set it aside. Same tool for this, of course. Prior to removing that caliper, I'm using a small caliper hanging hook here. Once we do have the caliper out of place, we're going to inspect it. We'll hang it aside, putting no pressure on our flex hose. Now looking in this area, we can see both of our brake pads. Give them a thorough inspection. If it looks like they're worn low or at an angle, that's something that you're going to want to service. As you can tell, these look fine, so let's go ahead and set this aside. Now that we have the caliper out of the way, let's start removing the brake rotor. We'll be on the outboard side. Along the outside here, I'm starting with one of my lug studs. Start it in just a few threads. Make sure it will not fall out of place, but it's still loose from the brake rotor. Next, we'll continue on to our mounting hardware, holding the brake rotor to our wheel bearing hub assembly. For this, I'm using a 5mm Allen head socket. Now, I've seen this plenty of times before where it strips out due to the fact it's rusted in place. There's several different ways to remove this. I'm going to be using an air chisel. Now, for this, I want to try to grab an edge, and I'm going to start turning it counterclockwise to remove it. There's our hardware. Typically, you would want to reuse this. Go ahead and give it a quick inspection and we'll set that aside. Take hold of the brake rotor, attempt to give it a wiggle. It may not move. Now, if that's the case, if you're not replacing the brake rotor, you definitely do not want to hit on the braking surface. I'm going to be using my hammer directly along this area where our brake rotor connects to the wheel bearing. Just cause some vibration here. You can use some penetrant, of course. Clean and thoroughly inspect your brake rotor as you continue on. Replace as necessary. Now that we have the brake rotor off, we have a clear view of our front wheel bearing and hub assembly. To continue on, remove your 36mm axle nut. We'll use some penetrant. Continuing on, you want a hammer and a punch. We're going directly in the center of the axle. This is where we're going to start tapping on this. We want to break the axle free from the wheel bearing. Now, as you can tell, I have plenty of movement here. If you don't have a punch, but only a hammer, go ahead and reinstall the axle nut enough that it's gripping onto a few threads and you should be able to tap as needed. Either way, we're still going to be reinstalling that nut just a couple threads here. This will prevent the wheel bearing from falling off once we've removed all other hardware as we continue on with the removal process. Now let's make our way behind this area for our 4 mounting bolts. Continuing on, if you're looking along the back side of the knuckle, we can see where our axle makes its way through this area. You're going to find that you have 4 E14 inverted Torx mounting bolts to remove. There's one mounting bolt. Let's get this next one out of here. Now I should be able to push on that axle. Remove that mounting bolt as well. Now we have 2 more mounting bolts on the rearward side. Okay, this one's out far enough. Continuing on, there's several different ways of removing a bearing. You can either have a bearing removal tool. If you don't, a hammer will do. As far as the hammer is concerned, we want to be tapping along this surface here. I want to try driving it down, up, and from side to side, breaking it free from the knuckle behind it. Once you do have that broken free from the steering knuckle, go ahead and remove that axle nut and remove the wheel bearing. There it is, friend. Now, prior to installation of any brand new part, we always want to make sure that we clean and inspect all mounting surfaces. As far as the steering knuckle is concerned, we're focusing inside of this circular port. The first thing we're looking for here is our ABS wheel speed sensor. We want to make sure it's not damaged in any way. Continue on cleaning up the area. You can use a wire brush, some sandpaper, whatever's necessary. We'll be extremely careful with that sensor. Once you have the inner portion cleaned down as well as possible, you also want to clean this outer portion, essentially the area that the bearing is going to mount against. And then we're also just focusing on the axle shaft itself. We can see the splined area and the threaded area. Confirm nothing's rotted, weak, or damaged. Once it's cleaned, a thorough inspection, and let's continue on with some anti-seize. We're going inside of that circular port. Just a thin amount here should do. This is going to prevent that wheel bearing from getting stuck in here, just in case you have to remove it again in the future for any reason. After you've applied anti-seize to that area, we're also focusing on that splined portion of the axle itself, not necessarily the threaded portion. There we are. Clean your hardware and apply blue thread locker. As far as this one bolt is concerned, no thread locker, just a little bit of copper anti-seize. Okay, let's prepare to install that brand new front wheel bearing. A quick look along the backside, we can see our magnetic strip. This is where the ABS wheel speed sensor is going to run along. Make sure there's no debris. As we go to install this, we'll make sure that our mounting bolt ports are aligned with the ports on the knuckle itself. Slide it in and start in all hardware. As we bring this wheel bearing into place, we're also focusing on that axle. The axle is going to slide through the center of the wheel bearing. Now I'm going to start on my axle nut, just holding this in place so I don't have to worry about anything. We'll continue on along the backside for those 4 mounting bolts. Now as far as the mounting bolts are concerned, we're going to start all of them in. When it's time to snug them, we want to go in a crisscross manner. Start over here, go over there, back over here, and then finish in the front there. Once everything's snug, we'll be torquing everything to 77 foot-pounds. Be able to move this around as necessary. That's those 2. Let's do the others. They're all started in. I'm going to snug them. I'll be down here and then the top on the forward side. Make my way back. Back over here, we can get this top one. And now to the forward lower mounting bolt. Now that they're all snug in the crisscross manner, we can torque these to 77 foot-pounds, and now you can just go around in a circle as necessary. Forward side here. Now we're done back here. Let's prepare to install our front brake rotor. Prior to installing that brand new rotor, let's use some anti-seize on the mating surface of the brand new wheel bearing hub assembly. You don't need very much, just a light coating. We'll apply just a little bit extra in the port that houses the securing mounting bolt. The next thing you need to do is make sure you clean the back side of the rotor mating surface, the area that's going to go directly against the bearing hub assembly. Let's get this in position. As we bring this in, the main focus is looking for where the lug studs will be. Confirm they all look as though they're properly aligned, and we'll continue on with that one mounting bolt. We've applied anti-seize, so that's going to help us out here. Go ahead and start that in by hand and snug it up. On my application, I had to use a hammer and chisel to snug this up. Otherwise, you can just use the socket that you had used to originally remove it. With the brake rotor in place, it's time to start installing our caliper. We're going to take our brake pads, still in the caliper bracket, and slide it right over that brake rotor. Now it's time for our caliper bracket bolts. Go ahead and start them in, snug them up. The torque for these is 122 foot-pounds. Before you go any further, take a look at your brake flex hose. Confirm it's not twisted in any way, which could restrict brake fluid flow. This looks fine, let's continue on. We're focusing on the axle nut next. For this, you want to make sure you bottom it out by hand using a hand tool only. Never use an impact tool, which could cause damage to the brand new bearing. When you go to snug this, you may find that it wants to turn on you. To help prevent that, you could either have a second person pressing on the brake pedal, or you can install 2 of your lug studs, use a pry bar diagonally down to the ground, preventing this from turning. The torque for your axle nut is going to be 148 foot-pounds. Got our torque wrench. Now once you have that torqued, you can't stop there. This particular type of axle nut needs to be peened in towards the axle. Looking at the very tip of the axle shaft, you can find that you have 2 slots carved out. Use a hammer and punch and drive that axle nut in. We'll just do the other side for good measure. This is going to prevent the axle nut from loosening up on you while you're driving down the road. Now we can remove our lug studs and prepare to install that front wheel. One last quick inspection in this area and we can reinstall our wheel. Now that I have them all started, I'm going to snug them up in a crisscross manner and we'll be torquing each of these once it's down on the ground to 89 foot-pounds. We've got the wheel on the ground, let's go ahead and torque these. Torqued. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our front wheel bearing. The next thing you need to do is hop in the passenger compartment. You're going to pump up that brake pedal till it's nice and firm. Take your vehicle for a road test, make sure you have no funny noises, no ABS light, and get yourself a 4-wheel alignment. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.